Hello there. Welcome back to ReviveFM 94.0. There we go. My name is Tom Hutchinson. It is Scott and Hutch. It's Tuesday. So I am Scott. No, I'm not. I'm Scott. He's Scott. I'm Hutch. He is...
I'm Hutch. No, not. Oh wait, I'm Scott, not Hutch.
Breakdown.
I do. I'm sorry about my lighting. I do look a bit scary, don't I?
Mate, I'm telling you, looking like this, you do not look scary, all right? This looks like sort of something out of, I don't know, like the little barbershop horrors or something like that. I don't know what's going on. Right, we have another guest here for you. I know, aren't we kind? 2 guests in one show. It's amazing. Right, now, the census is coming up, the 2021 census. And joining me here is, joining us here, I should say, is David Cocozza, who is actually part of the 2021 census and is going to explain a little bit about it. So, David, welcome to the show, mate. It's lovely to have you on.
Thanks, gents. How are you doing?
We're doing well.
Yeah,
how are you doing?
He's very
surviving in lockdown. It's a strange position for all of us to be in, I think. But I'm still alive. You talked about your barnets just recently. I haven't had a haircut in about 3 months now, and I'm starting to feel the same. That I need to go out soon and eventually get a haircut because this length is just not good for me anymore.
Do you know what? It used to be down to my shoulders, down to about here.
So did mine. I used to have it down to here as well.
It's great, isn't it? It is great. It's just
lads, I've also had that amount of hair, and I can't lie. Since I've gone back short, I much rather appreciate it.
So I missed the length. I missed the length of it. That's the problem.
No, Tom. It's so. I'm sorry. We're going to sound like a gaggling bunch of girls here, but it's so long to have in the shower. It's just like you can't. Now I can just quickly. I'll quickly pop for a shower. Dash off. But now I can't. When I had long hair, I couldn't just dash off for a shower. I had to spend a full on 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I think I might shower today because I can put it in my calendar because that's how long it's going to take.
I think I've come to the wrong show today, gents. This is more like a barbershop show than anything about the census.
This is what lockdown's done to us. Right, let's get back onto topic then. So, the 2021 census. Now, everyone's heard about it, obviously, with the Doomsday Book and things like that. But for our listeners, could you just clarify sort of what the census is about, what it does, what is its main purpose?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you both of you for having me on your show, and it's really good to be here to talk to your listeners about the upcoming census. And if you don't know what it is, the census happens every 10 years. So this is the first one since 2011, and will essentially be the most comprehensive look at the population of the UK as it is right now on the 21st of March 2021, which is when the census takes place. It collects data on people's households, transport, current financial situations, just creates a real statistical database of the population that informs so much about the local services in Newham and across the country over the next 10 years. It helps the fire brigade plan effectively on the risks in the local population, age data. It allows hospitals to effectively plan resources. One of the things that the last census allowed us to do was to ensure that hospitals had access to imams based on local Muslim populations. So the data basically informed that employment and allowed hospitals to be, those employments were paid by the Department of Health. So those kind of statistical analysis that you can do, that we do at the ONS, provides so much data for the next 10 years. And essentially what we ask is that everyone in the UK has to complete it. It is a mandatory census that's done every 10 years. And the next one is on the 21st of March. We've been doing it every 10 years in the UK now since I think about 1840. But it has, obviously, there have been ad hoc censuses since then. You mentioned the Doomsday Book and things like that. In fact, the first ever census was done by the Babylonians about 6,000 years ago. So it's nothing new, but this will be the most recent one and hopefully will reflect where our country is right now and allow us to plan effectively for the next 10 years.
Brilliant. And so the thing that I'm sure that will panic most people is regards to sort of data protection and things like that. So obviously, cybercrime is, really on the increase. And I believe this is the first time that the census can actually be done online, especially with regards to what's going on at the moment with the pandemic and being able to go out. How safe will the data be that is how safe is the data that will be collected?
It's not going to get sold to Cambridge Analytica.
No. I can't comment on Cambridge Analytica specifically, but I can tell you it's a very...
Phyllis at number 74 likes cream crackers. Get some down there. Do it like that.
No, I can assure you that the data that anyone provides on the census is very secure. Now, as you mentioned, this is the first digital census. So although it isn't the first time the census has ever collected data purely online, that was 2011 when we had some responses as kind of a test model done online. But this will be the first where people won't get paper questionnaires sent to them in the first instance. They will get a link to an online survey that you complete as part of the census. But if you do want paper options, that's something that we can do. But that data is kept very secure. It's under lock and key for 100 years. So everything is anonymized before data is produced from the census. So nobody can ever be identified by the information they provide. It's only for historical records after 100 years that it's released in its full format. So in January next year, we'll have the first results of the 1921 census being made publicly available for the first time. And it creates some amazing stuff in there. So you can see, for example, we looked at, so I'm a big Star Trek fan myself. I love Star Trek. And I found there was a James T. Kirk living in London, live long and prosper. And there was a James T. Kirk living in London. So you can see those kind of things in historical data, but it's never released for at least 100 years. So you can rest assured that it's completely safe and secure. I can tell you the ONS regularly get requests from other government departments to share data, whether that's with perhaps the security services or anyone else, and no data is ever shared for any reason. It's purely kept
even amongst government.
Correct. It is never shared. It is completely anonymized. I can say to you that, like I said to you, there have been times when the security services have asked for data, but we are very strict on our data security protocols, and that is never shared. So it's completely anonymous and locked away for 100 years.
Wow.
It's amazing. Well, I was also going to say as well, for our listeners, if anyone does have any questions or any comments they want to call in, they can call the WhatsApp the studio on 0333 444 0940. That's 0333 444 0940. You can also send us a message on YouTube or Facebook as we're on live at the moment. So you can just type in ReviveFM UK, and we'll obviously put your questions over. Another question that I had as well was with regards to how the data has been used in the past. So you say obviously that we've had things such as like imams have been brought into hospitals in Muslim prominent areas. What other sort of things does it go towards doing, like with regards to like local communities and things like that?
Sure, it's a really good question. The census data can be used for so many different things. So it informs transport services, for example. So we know from the last census that in Newham, because I'm responsible for Newham, that's the area that I know best, 23% of all the people that lived in Newham in the last census, 2011, took public transport. And we can then use that to identify areas that might need a bit more investment in infrastructure to ensure that the transport networks are effective for the amount of people that live in the area. So we know that the last 10 years have seen quite an exponential growth in the amount of people that live in London. There's been a lot of immigration from outside of the UK, and that is going to have an impact on how our country now is. And the last census data, 2011, is more likely to be not an accurate picture of what the local borough of Newham is like anymore. So it informs things like healthcare as well. Are there enough doctors' surgeries, GP surgeries? And I think that's very relevant right now, particularly in the midst of a pandemic. Are the local infrastructure services adequate enough to keep up with demand? And is it, what else can be done? This is the first census to ever ask questions about gender identity and sexual orientation. That's a voluntary question that's been added for this census. So something like that will enable us to get a real good picture of London and identify areas where there are high LGBT plus populations that might need a bit more targeted support. And that is the kind of thing that the census data is used for. It helps plan services both in a public and in a private sector.
I've got a question.
Sure.
So I think we'd get on great if we're not on talking on the radio, because I'm a bit of a data boffin. I absolutely just love poring over statistics and data. I don't know why. It's a bit of a nerd in me that gets a real kick out of that. But when it comes to I was looking, when we heard you were coming on, I was having a jump around the census website, and I noticed that obviously you have to do the census. So which parts of the census do you have to do, and which parts are voluntary? And then I've got a follow-up question.
Sure. So there are a couple of voluntary questions this time around. So the questions on gender identity and sexual orientation are voluntary. You don't have to complete those. Also, there's a question on whether you were previously a veteran, so if you've ever served in the armed forces. The rest of the census is mandatory. It is a legal requirement set under law that you do have to complete those parts.
Right. And this is actually ties nicely into the follow-up question is, I was hunting around on your website and it says there's £1,000 fine for not filling that out. How is that usually enforced?
So this is the kind of where I come in, and my role is to work with the local community to identify barriers for participation so that everyone feels able enough to complete the census fully. And hopefully we'll never get to that stage. So we do have quite an extensive stage to ever get to that £1,000 fine. So please, no one worry out there. No one's going to come knocking on your door asking for £1,000 immediately. As much as that would be nice for some people, I'm sure, but no one's ever going to come around and start knocking your door asking for money. There is quite a process that we do follow-ups. We find out from people why they haven't completed the census. But if there is genuinely no valid reason why someone's not doing the census, then you can be prosecuted under law. So there have been times when essentially what the process is you get a court summons, and you essentially are faced a fine of £1,000 or do your census there. As far as I'm aware, most people just opt to do the census there and then, as opposed to the fine. I can't tell you of any instance that I know of where anyone's had the fine, but it is there in law so that if that eventually ever does come up. But like I said, my role is as the local engagement officer is to hope that I can work with everyone in the local community to make sure that they feel able to do the census, and it never really gets to that part.
Yeah. And I suppose one thing I loved about the census website was that as a frequently asked question is, what if I can't afford the £1,000 fine? And the answer was, well, if you can't afford the £1,000 fine, this can be avoided by doing the census.
It's a very easy response. You know, if you can't afford it, just do it, please. It's very secure. There's no problems about data security. You can never be identified about that, you know, and really there's, as far as I can see, there is no other valid reason why you shouldn't do it. And it, like you say, is mandatory in law. But hopefully we never get to that point. But if anyone does want to avoid the census, be prepared. Save up some money if you really do want to avoid it completely.
I mean, let's be honest, I think with the way fines are being dished out at the moment, I think another fine is the least of the least thing on everyone's mind, that we just like, not another fine, I can't go out. And obviously the other thing as well is, so if, for example, someone doesn't have internet access or anything like that, are there other ways that they can participate? You know, is there ways that also, because I know that some people might be a little bit concerned if, say, someone starts ringing up out the blue or anything like that, asking for information, they might go, oh, hang on, I don't know who you are. So, you know, are there other ways? And then how do people know that it's a genuine contact from the ONS to take part in the census?
Sure. Well, first of all, like I said to you, although this is a digital first census, there are paper copies available. Everyone will get some information through in the post in the coming few months, and that will give you a link to the online resource. But if you don't have the internet, and we know there are some people, or you don't have the necessary equipment, there are paper copies available. Around the beginning of March, everyone will start getting this information. There will be a telephone hotline that anyone can phone up to request a paper copy, and that will be easily available online. We also have some census support centres that will be coming online within the Newham and the surrounding areas. The exact date I'm not too sure of, but it will again be March, and they will be physical places that, COVID permitting, will be open for people to go in and request additional information. and that information will be shared by Newham Council as and when it is received, and it can be confirmed. But those are the kind of the first two options. If you need a paper copy, you can also speak to the officers that may knock on your door to follow up. So one of the things that we do is identify households that haven't completed the census, and they will be visited by a field officer. Those will be clearly identifiable by a little badge here. So if you're online, and you can see this on the ReviveFM website, you'll be able to see I've got my little census badge here. I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt on my one. It looks like I was going outside to Tenerife or something. But everyone
I wish.
Yeah, me too.
I've got a bit of cabin fever.
I think we all have, to be honest. I was in Tenerife last September, and I missed the sun a lot. I'm half Italian, so it's in my blood to be basking within the sun. But you don't get that much of that in Blackheath where I am at the moment. Everyone from the census will have a lanyard and a badge, so you'll be able to identify them, and you can also call up the census hotlines and check that they are someone who is working for the census. That is, of course, COVID permitting, and they will be in full PPE, so there's nothing to worry about there. But hopefully those are the ones that will help identify people that don't have internet access. Is you can call up, there will be places you can go, and somebody will visit you if you need that additional help.
Oh, brilliant. I was just wondering, so can you walk us through a bit of the process and how this is going to happen? So everyone's going to be sent, is it going to be a text message, an email? What's going to happen around March time?
Sure. Well, the first bit of information that everyone will receive is going to be some pieces, some literature in the post. There'll be a few postcards that will have information about the census is coming, and then as we get closer to the census day on the 21st of March, each household will receive a unique link to the unique code to the online census form. You input that code and it will allow you to complete the survey online. So that's where everyone will get the information. It will be through the post in the coming few weeks and months. So around the start of March, you should expect that. However, there'll be plenty of stuff happening in the meantime. I'll be running local engagement workshops with community groups, churches, mosques. There's plenty happening within the community that will hopefully raise awareness. Things like this as well. So, really grateful for you guys having me on their show, because it allows us to spread the message that the census is coming and start to get the word out that it is secure. There's nothing to worry about. It's not about catching anyone out. It's just providing the next 10 years of really good statistical data that everyone will be able to pore over as well. But it's never identifiable. But that's really the key, is that this enables us to get the word out right now. But there is stuff coming. So look out for about March for stuff landing on your doorstep.
Brilliant. And I just had a question, but it's completely gone out of my head. Oh yeah, that's it. So you're saying that obviously there are sort of events taking place in the area. If people want to get involved on that or anything, is there a website that we can direct them to, or anyway, if they want to find out sort of when and where the dates are going to be?
Yeah, no worries at all. So in the first instance, I run my own Twitter and Instagram. So I'm at Census S Newham on Twitter and Instagram. So that's Census South Newham, because there's quite a large team of us within Newham. So myself and George are the Census Engagement Managers, and we have a team of 7 community advisors under us. I'm the lead with the council, so I currently have the Twitter account. So it's Census S Newham, and I'll be tweeting on there, and you can direct message me or find out what's going on through Twitter and Instagram. But not only that, I work closely with the London Borough of Newham as a council, and they'll be putting out lots of information on the magazine, online, on their Twitter feed, or you simply go to the census website and you can find out what's happening through the Office for National Statistics. It's always a hard word to say. That always catches me out. I work for them, but I can hardly ever say that word, statistics.
Why do you think I've been saying ONS?
Yeah, ONS from now on. It's much easier. And you can find there are quite a large number of jobs coming up in the next few weeks as well. And if you want to find out any more information about them and the ONS, just go to censusjobs.co.uk.
Sorry, I don't know about Tom, but I'm definitely in need of like a little part-time job. Is there any part-time roles coming up?
There are across the UK 30,000 part-time roles coming up. Within Newham specifically, there's 190 that are coming up, and they are advertising right now. And there are part-time roles available from the start of February all the way through to April, May onwards. There's plenty of part-time jobs available. Like I said, 30,000 across the UK. So censusjobs.co.uk to find out more information. Please apply.
Typing that in now.
Don't worry, I think you and me as well. I think we'll be doing
Come on board.
I can't take furlough anymore. I've had enough. It's no more of it. I can't.
No, and there's not a lot of video work going for me at the minute, so I'll definitely be.
This is the useful thing about the census. It enables us to look at, and particularly where we are right now in the pandemic, it will enable us to see how much of the impact the pandemic has had on the population. Like my wife has been on furlough, or she was on furlough for about 6 months last year. And then she unfortunately caught coronavirus and was off with long COVID for about 2 months. And she's just going back to work. But one of the things the census will allow us to do is to identify work and transport, and how many people worked from home, and how many people had to take a car to work. You know, there is so much data you can generate, and that's one of the good things about the census. You know, that there are jobs available right now if anyone wants to be out and about or stay at home and do a bit of work from home as well.
I mean, the thing I would ask as well is that obviously, I mean, we are hoping that this is not going to go on for too much longer. So obviously in the short term, it's going to be absolutely great to know how everybody's getting on, and how the government and the ONS can actually direct public funds and things like that to it. But in the long term, do you still think that this census will be as effective, or do you see a point we might have to maybe do this a little bit shorter, like maybe do another census in a couple of years' time as opposed to another 10?
Well, there are other data sources that can provide information. So the Greater London Authority also run mid-year estimates. They produce their own data sets as well. Some of it's based off the census, but they also collect that based on things like council tax and local information. So there is always data available that's coming in regularly to councils that can provide information to the local authorities and inform services. There won't be another census within the next 10 years. It is a once every 10 years survey as such. Will it still be relevant? Absolutely. There is the information on there will be very relevant to informing the next 10 years. Things like the employment status. If you are furloughed, it would ask you about a job that you have been furloughed from, and what you've been doing for the last sort of few years. So that information will also be taken into account. Any kind of further information on that will be given out by the ONS when and if that need arises. But there's plenty of information that can be produced from the census for the next 10 years regardless.
Really amazing stuff.
I think as well. I think Henry's already currently on there looking for work and things like that. So,
I might have just been having a little skim.
Go for it.
We'd be all happy to have you on board, mate. Honestly, we are really recruiting quite highly in Newham. So if you've got the right to work in the UK and all that legal stuff, then by all means, we've got the contract for you. So come on board.
Yes, please.
This isn't a job offer. I'm not giving you a job offer, by the way.
No,
I just want to clarify that before anyone asks. You've not got a job offer.
I was going to sit with Alan Sugar and go, right, I want you to work. You're hired.
No worries.
Right. Well, I think because we are overrunning, I think we are going to have to go to a break. But it's been great having you on. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be able to get the message out, obviously, to take care of the census. And just remind us the date again. I believe it's the 21st of March. Is that right?
You hit the nail on the head there. 21st of March, 2021.
Didn't even have to look at it. There we go.
David, wish you live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Take care.
Star Trek fans out there.
Yep. And we are going to live long and prosper with some very short ads. See you after the break.
ReviveFM
94.0 on the radio,
on your mobile
and online.